and welcome. I'm so happy to see you here today. I was just getting ready to read a story. Would you like for me to read you the story? All right. Well, if you have a favorite blanket or pillow or toy that you'd like to get snuggly with while you have a story read to you, then I'm going to wait here while you run and go get that. Wonderful. Have you found a nice, comfortable place to sit or lay down? Good. Well then, let's get started with today's story. Today's story is called The Shoemaker and the Elves. A shoemaker, by no fault of his own, had become so poor that at last he had nothing left but enough leather for one pair of shoes. So, in the evening, he cut out the shoes which he wished to begin to make the next morning. And then he lay down quietly in his bed, said his prayers, and fell asleep. In the morning, as he was going to sit down at his table to work, the two shoes stood quiet, finished, on his table. He was astounded. He knew not what to say. He took the shoes in his hands to observe them closer, and they were so neatly made that there was not one bad stitch in them, just as if they were intended as a masterpiece. Soon after, a buyer came in, and as the shoes made him so happy, he paid more for them than was their price. And with that extra money, he was able to go buy enough leather for 2 more pairs of shoes. And that night, he cut them out of the leather and laid them on the table so that he could begin to work in the morning. But when he got up, they were already made, and there were buyers there wanting to buy the shoes. They gave him enough money to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. The following morning he found the 4 pairs made, and so it went on constantly. What he cut out in the evening was finished by the morning, so that soon he had enough money to continue working, and eventually he became a wealthy man. Now, it befell that one evening, not long before Christmas, when the man had been cutting out the leather, he said to his wife before going to bed, "What do you think if we were to stay up at night to see who it is that helps us out?" His wife liked the idea, and so she lit a candle, and the two of them hid in the corner of a room behind some clothes which were hanging up, and they watched. When it was midnight, 2 little elves came out, sat down on the shoemaker's table, took all of the work which was cut out before them, and began to stitch and sew and hammer so skillfully and so quickly with their little fingers that the shoemaker could not turn away his eyes, for he was so amazed. They did not stop until all was done and stood finished on the table, and then they quickly ran away. The next morning the shoemaker's wife said, "These little men have made us rich, and we really must show them how grateful we are. They run about so, and they don't have many clothes. They must be cold. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I will make them little shirts and coats and vests and trousers, and knit both of them a pair of stockings. And you, too, will make 2 little pairs of shoes." The man said, "I shall be very glad to do that." So, one night, When everything was ready, they laid their presents all together on the table instead of the cut-out leather, and then they hid themselves to see how the little men would behave. At midnight, they came bounding in and wanted to get to work at once, but they didn't find any leather. They only found the pretty little articles of clothing. They were at first astonished, and then they showed intense delight. They dressed themselves quickly, putting on the pretty clothes and singing, "Now we are boys so fine to see. Why should we longer cobblers be?" Then they danced and skipped and leapt over chairs and benches. At last they danced out of their doors, and they never came back. But as long as the shoemaker lived, all went well with him and his business. The end. That was a fun story, wasn't it? I would love to find elves. Would you? That would be so funny. Thank you for listening to a story today. Please come back anytime, and I'll read you another story. Bye.